The night was colder than usual for early autumn, the kind that crept through torn jackets and thin hoodies and settled deep into bone. Liam felt it as he walked along the cracked sidewalk, kicking a pebble back and forth just to feel like he was controlling something in his life. 15 years old and living on the edge of the world, he'd learned long ago that staying in motion kept the loneliness from swallowing him whole. He tightened the straps on his worn backpack, the only thing he owned that hadn't been stolen or traded for food. Cars rushed by on the nearby highway, engines echoing through the quiet town, but Liam was used to being invisible to the people inside them. He didn't expect anyone to slow down for a kid like him. They never did. Before we go any deeper into what happened next, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Stories like this somehow reach every corner of the world, and it still blows my mind. Liam's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, a small sandwich he'd gotten after sweeping behind a gas station. Tonight, he'd planned to slip behind the diner dumpster after closing and hope for leftovers. But fate, or something darker, had already written a very different path for him. He heard laughter, not the kind he was used to, the cold, mocking laughter of older kids who found entertainment in bullying a homeless boy, but warm, light laughter. A girl's, young, happy, completely unaware of the danger, seconds away from shattering her life. Liam stopped at the corner of Maple Street, the orange glow of a street lamp buzzing above him. Across the intersection, a girl no older than 9 walked with a small backpack bouncing behind her, probably coming from a friend's house or late practice. She was singing to herself, swinging her arms, completely carefree. At first, Liam barely looked twice. Kids lived in different universes from him, ones with safety, parents, bedtime stories. He kept walking. Then the sound hit him. A roaring engine. Too loud. Too fast. Too wrong. Liam's instincts sharpened instantly. He turned his head toward the main road. A truck, a lifted black pickup with blinding white headlights, barreled down the street far above the speed limit. The driver wasn't slowing for the intersection, wasn't braking, wasn't doing anything at all except plowing straight forward like he didn't care who was in his path. And the girl? She'd stepped off the curb. Liam didn't think, didn't plan. He didn't even breathe. His feet launched forward with a burst of adrenaline he didn't know he still had in him. The world blurred around him. The headlights, the screeching engine, the girl humming some song under her breath. "Look out," he yelled, but the truck drowned his voice. He reached her just as the headlights flooded over her tiny frame. She froze, eyes widening, breath catching in her throat. Liam slammed into her with everything he had. The world flipped. He felt her small body roll out of the way, tumbling toward the sidewalk. A split second later, the truck clipped Liam's side with a violent burst of pain. The impact tore him off his feet and sent him crashing into the pavement like a rag doll. The concrete scraped his face, tore skin from his arms, and knocked the air from his lungs. The truck didn't stop. It roared past without hesitation, without slowing, without checking, without even acknowledging the human lives it had almost destroyed. The girl screamed. Liam tasted blood as he tried pushing himself up, but his muscles refused. His ribs burned. His right leg trembled uncontrollably. He blinked through pain and saw her crawling toward him on shaking hands, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mister? Mister, are you okay?" Her voice was thin, trembling, terrified. He tried to smile, but it came out crooked and broken. "You're safe. That's what matters." A door slammed in the distance. Then another. Liam heard shouting. Deep, powerful voices filled with rage and fear. Boots hit the pavement fast, heavy, controlled. Not the kind of steps belonging to men who panic. These were men who acted. 3 silhouettes appeared in the glow of the street lamp. Leather vests. Patches. The unmistakable red and white flash of the Hells Angels. The girl ran toward them. "Daddy!" The tallest biker dropped to his knees and scooped her into his arms, holding her tight. That was Bear, the man whose presence could silence a room. but whose daughter's cry could break him in an instant. "What happened, baby? What happened?" he whispered, voice trembling. She pointed at Liam. He pushed me. He saved me." The bikers turned. Their eyes found Liam on the ground, bleeding, shaking, struggling to breathe. Bear's expression changed from confusion to dawning horror to something far more dangerous. A father's fear, a biker's rage, a Hell's Angel's promise of retribution. Bear stood, jaw clenched so hard the muscle twitched. Candle, the second biker, was already on his phone, calling emergency services with one hand while assessing Liam's injuries with the other. Torch, the third, scanned the street like a predator looking for the truck that had nearly killed a child. Liam tried to move again. "I'm fine." "No," Candle said, pressing a steady hand to Liam's shoulder. "Don't talk. Don't move. You just did the bravest damn thing I've ever seen." Bear knelt beside Liam now, his powerful frame blocking the harsh streetlight. His eyes softened just slightly, the same eyes that had terrified grown men in bars and back alleys. "You saved my little girl," he said, voice low and thick with emotion. "You saved my baby, and I don't even know your name." Liam swallowed hard. "Liam." Bear tightened his jaw, staring at the boy like he was trying to understand why fate had dropped him into their lives tonight. "Liam," he said, voice steady but dangerous around the edges. "Whoever that bastard was, he's not getting away with this." The sirens were already growing louder in the distance, but the real storm had only just begun. Because this wasn't just an accident. This was the opening move in a war Liam didn't know he was already part of. And the Hell's Angels weren't about to let anyone hurt a child, especially not a homeless boy who'd risked his life to save one of their own. Night wrapped around Ridgewood like a bruised blanket, thick, heavy, and colder than usual. A thin mist clung to the streets, glowing faintly under flickering streetlights. The world felt half asleep, but Liam wasn't. Boys who lived on the street didn't get the luxury of shutting down. He sat behind the old gas station where he usually crashed, ribs aching from where the truck had clipped him. Tonight should have been just another night of trying not to freeze. But everything had changed the second he shoved little Emily out of the truck's path. The moment kept replaying in his head, her tiny backpack flying, her hair whipping in the wind, the truck's horn blaring like a warning from hell. He should have run. Most kids would have. Instead he'd jumped, grabbed her, thrown her clear, and taken the hit himself. Now he sat bruised, shaking, and confused. He'd tried to disappear afterward. People like him didn't stay long around bikers, especially not Hell's Angels. But the image of Bear, Emily's father, a massive, silent man with a black beard and the kind of stare that could peel paint, kept haunting him. Liam had no idea what that man thought of him now. Gratitude? Suspicion? Something worse? Footsteps crunched across gravel. Liam jerked upright. His fists tightened even though he had nothing to fight with. "Easy," a low voice said. "You don't need to swing at me, kid." Blitz stepped into the dim light. Broad shoulders, heavy boots, hood hanging open. He carried himself like a man who'd been through wars the world never heard about. Liam backed against the wall anyway. "I'm not looking for trouble." Blitz snorted. "Trouble? Kid, you saved Emily." "That's the opposite." Liam shrugged stiffly. "Anyone would've." "No," Blitz said. "Most people freeze. You didn't." The biker's gaze dropped to Liam's side. "You're hurt." "I'll manage." Blitz crossed his arms. "You said that earlier when you limped away from Bear before Doc could check you." Liam swallowed. "I don't need anything." "Yeah, that's usually what kids with nothing say." Before Liam could respond, another smaller set of footsteps approached. Soft. Careful. Emily. She stepped forward, holding something cupped in her hands. Her cheeks were blotchy from crying earlier, but her eyes were steady now. "Liam," she whispered. She opened her hands. Inside was her little plush bear, worn, faded, one ear barely hanging on. "You left this," she said. Liam blinked. That's yours." Emily shook her head. "I want you to have it." Daddy says when someone saves your life, they become family forever. Family. The word cut deeper than any bruise. Blitz cleared his throat. Kid, Bear wants to talk to you. Properly. Inside. Warm. You don't stay out here behind dumpsters after saving the president's daughter from this club. Liam stiffened. Talk to me about what? About thanking you, Blitz said. About helping you. Maybe more. If you want it. Emily reached out, her small fingers slipping into Liam's hand. It's safe. Cross my heart. He didn't trust hope. But Emily wasn't hope. She was truth. And truth was rare. Liam nodded. Blitz's lips twitched. Not a smile, but close enough. Good. Come on. As they walked out of the alley, pain shot through Liam's leg. He stumbled. Blitz immediately caught him. You're running on fumes, kid, Blitz said. Lean on me. Liam did. Out front, the parking lot was lit by rows of idling bikes. Engines rumbled low, the sound vibrating through Liam's chest. The brothers stood waiting. Reaper, Sparks, Tank, Document. And in front of them all, like a living mountain, stood Bear. Beard thick, arms tattooed, eyes dark and tired. He didn't move at first. He just stared at Liam with a look no one had ever given him before. Half disbelief, half something close to awe. Then Bear stepped forward. The other bikers fell silent. Bear looked Liam up and down, voice barely above a growl. You okay, son? Liam swallowed. I think so. Bear's jaw clenched. He put a huge, calloused hand on Liam's shoulder. Carefully, like Liam was something fragile. You saved my little girl. You saved the only good thing I ever did in this world. His voice broke for half a second. I don't know how to thank you. Liam's eyes dropped. You don't owe me anything. Bear shook his head hard. Yeah, I do. Emily grabbed her dad's vest with one hand and Liam's sleeve with the other. Can we take him with us? Please. Blitz spoke. Doc needs to check his ribs. Reaper added. Kid needs food too. Tank grunted. And a real bed. As the suggestions piled up, Liam's head spun. No one had ever argued for him before. Not once in his entire life. The club didn't wait for his answer. Bear opened the truck door. Get in, Liam. You're riding with us. Liam hesitated, but Emily squeezed his hand again, and something inside him melted. He climbed into the truck. Emily pressed right up next to him. The bikes formed a protective wall around them, engines roaring to life like steel guardians. As they pulled onto the road, headlights cutting through the fog, Emily leaned close and whispered, Liam, you should stay with us forever if you want. Daddy said people who protect family become family. Liam's chest tightened. You really think so? She nodded. And you gotta subscribe to life again. Not just survive it. As my dad says, people who stick around don't miss the good parts. The line hit him hard. He didn't know why. Maybe because no one had ever asked him to stay before. He looked out the window at the convoy escorting him like royalty. Was this real? Was he really safe? Or was this the beginning of something bigger, something dangerous, something life-changing? His heartbeat thudded as the clubhouse lights appeared in the distance. Tonight wasn't over, and neither was the danger. The Iron Cross Clubhouse sat on the outskirts of Ridgewood, a long, rectangular structure of steel and concrete that glowed under floodlights. To most people, it looked like a place you didn't approach unless you had a death wish. But to Liam, rolling in with the convoy, it looked like shelter. Maybe the first real shelter he'd seen in years. Bear pulled the truck into the lower bay and killed the engine. Before Liam could open his door, Doc was already there. A tall, lean man with silver hair and the kind of eyes that could diagnose a problem before you spoke. Let's take a look at you, Doc said, tone firm but not unkind. Liam slid out of the seat, biting back a hiss as pain shot through his ribs. Emily hopped down right after him, sticking close, almost glued to his side. Blitz leaned over with a low whistle. Kid, you took that hit harder than you're letting on. Liam didn't argue. It would have taken too much breath. Inside, the clubhouse wasn't what Liam expected. Sure, it had the biker stuff, patched leather vests pinned to the walls, old group photos, heavy wooden tables, but it also had warmth. Lamps cast soft light. A big stone fireplace crackled in the corner. There were couches, rugs, books on a shelf, a smell of real food cooking in a real kitchen. Not a den of criminals. More like a strange, rough-edged home. Doc guided Liam to a leather couch. Sit. Slowly. Emily climbed up beside him and sat cross-legged, watching every move like a small guard dog. Her plush bear was still clutched in her arms. Doc pressed gently along Liam's ribs. Liam clenched his jaw. Nothing broken, Doc said after a moment. Bruised like hell, but you'll live. Emily let out a huge breath of relief. Bear stood nearby, arms crossed, watching them with a heavy expression that was neither anger nor softness, but something in between, something Liam couldn't read. Then Tank and Reaper stepped inside. Tank was built like an entire wall by himself. Reaper looked like a man who'd taken apart trouble for sport. They paused when they saw Liam. That the kid? Reaper murmured. Yeah, Blitz said. The one who shoved Emily out of the way. Reaper's gaze sharpened. That truck wasn't braking. Tank's jaw flexed. Someone tried to hit her. Bear didn't flinch. I know. The room shifted, quieter, darker, a current running under the air. Liam felt it, even if he didn't understand it fully. Emily leaned against him. Liam saved me, she said, as if any of them might forget. Reaper nodded slowly. Looks like it. Tank crossed his arms. Then he stays. Anybody touches him, they answer to me. Liam blinked. He wasn't used to people defending him. He wasn't used to anything like this. Bear finally spoke. We're not just keeping him because of what he did. Liam stiffened. Bear stepped forward, lowering himself to one knee so he was eye level with the boy. You didn't run, Bear said. Truck coming at you. You still pushed her out of the way. That kind of instinct. You can't teach it. Liam swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. Bear continued, voice low. We protect people who protect family. Emily nudged Liam's arm. You protected me. Liam stared at the floor. I just reacted. Exactly, Blitz said from behind him. Reflex tells you who you are. Doc pulled out an ice pack wrapped in cloth and handed it to Liam. Hold this against your side. Don't be a hero about it. It helps. Liam pressed it carefully against his ribs. The cold stung, then it was relieved. Bear rose to his full height, shoulders broad enough to block half the room. Until we find out who was driving that truck, he said, you're staying here. You're under my roof. My protection. Liam looked up sharply. But why? You don't even know me. Bear's expression didn't change, but something warm flickered behind the stern exterior. I know enough, he replied. Emily slipped her hand into Liam's without asking. You're with us now. Liam froze, fingers trembling slightly. He didn't know how to hold a hand anymore. He didn't know how to be held onto, either. Before he could respond, the metal door at the back slammed open. Sparks rushed in, breathless, phone in hand, eyes wide. Bear! Sparks shouted. We pulled the traffic cam. The entire room snapped to attention. Sparks continued, voice tight, shaken. That truck wasn't swerving. Wasn't drunk. It was aimed. Emily's grip on Liam tightened. Bear's jaw set like concrete. Show me. Sparks held up the phone. The room gathered around. Liam couldn't see the screen, but he felt the air grow colder, heavier. A ripple of raw anger passed from one biker to the next like a chain reaction. Tank muttered something low and vicious under his breath. Reaper exhaled slowly. Too controlled, too quiet. Blitz swore softly. Sparks lowered the phone, face pale. It was deliberate. Someone targeted Emily. Emily pressed closer to Liam, her little fingers digging into his. Doc looked at Bear. What do you want done? Bear didn't speak for a long moment. Then he looked at Liam. Not with suspicion, not with fear, but with something that felt like a vow. First, Bear said, we make sure the kids are safe. His voice dropped lower, darker. Then we go find whoever did this. Liam felt something unfamiliar swell in his chest. Security. Belonging. Protection that wasn't conditional or cruel. Emily looked at him with wide, trusting eyes. You're staying close to me until Daddy fixes this, she whispered. Liam nodded. He didn't know why, but he believed her father could fix it. He believed these men weren't just tough, they were unshakable. The room buzzed with strategy. Maps rolled out. Phones dialed. Orders whispered. The clubhouse had shifted from warm to war-ready in seconds. And Liam sat in the center of it all, holding ice to his ribs, with a little girl leaning against him like he was the safest place in the world. He had never been anyone's safe place before. But tonight, that had changed. The night stretched thick and heavy over Ridgewood. Rain had begun to fall lightly, painting the streets in dark reflections and making the neon signs of distant shops shimmer like fading stars. But inside the Hells Angels clubhouse, the world felt safer, though only just. The threat outside had not disappeared. The truck incident had made that painfully clear. Someone had targeted Emily, and Bear's face showed the weight of the promise he had made. Her safety, above all else. Every muscle in his face seemed tense, his eyes scanning constantly, never lingering too long in one place. Liam sat beside Emily in the lounge area, watching her trace patterns on her plush bear with a finger. She hummed softly, but the tension in her small shoulders betrayed that she hadn't fully relaxed yet. The weight of what had just happened, the truck barreling down, the fear, the adrenaline, was still raw. Liam's ribs ached from the shove he had taken, and his mind replayed the truck, the screeching tires, the way Emily's eyes had widened in terror. Bear moved through the room, checking on everyone. Tank was stationed near the large windows, scanning the wet streets for any suspicious movement. Reaper leaned beside him, eyes sharp and unblinking. Sparks and Blitz huddled over maps and traffic camera feeds, marking possible routes the vehicle could have taken and trying to trace the driver's path. Doc paced slowly, clipboard in hand, monitoring Liam's bruises and keeping an eye on Emily's pale face. Each of them moved with the quiet authority of people who had faced danger before, and Liam felt a mixture of awe and intimidation. Liam shifted the ice pack Doc had given him, wincing at the lingering pain in his ribs. He wanted to make sure Emily was comfortable, that she felt safe, but his own body reminded him of the night's danger with every breath. Still, he refused to let her see him falter. That had been the rule on the street. Never show fear, never show weakness. Sparks finally looked up from the table. Bear, the truck wasn't random. Whoever did this, they were testing us. Watching. They're smart, calculated. Bear's jaw tightened. Then we give them a reason to regret it. His voice was low but carried the weight of command. Emily squeezed Liam's hand. They won't get me, she whispered. Liam swallowed hard. He wanted to believe her. But the fear that had surged through him earlier wasn't going to leave overnight. Doc crouched beside Liam. You're tougher than you look, kid. But you're not invincible. Don't get ahead of yourself. Liam nodded silently. Doc was right. But instincts, the same ones that had made him shove Emily out of the way of that truck, were impossible to ignore. That instinct was now entwined with a responsibility he hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. Bear returned to the center of the room, his gaze sweeping over the assembled bikers. Then he locked eyes with Liam. Tonight showed me something. Liam, what you did, it's rare. A kid with nothing, willing to risk everything for another. That's courage most people never see. Emily's small smile tugged at his heart, but Liam felt the weight of her words more than the warmth. Bear's attention shifted to the others. We're not leaving anything to chance. Cameras, lights, patrols. We make sure Emily and Liam are untouchable. Sparks pointed to a stack of notebooks. We should document everything. The people in her life, her routes, potential threats. Whoever's behind this is calculating. They want control, fear, or chaos. Bear nodded. We protect the innocent. That's our line. And anyone crossing it will learn the hard way. Liam's chest tightened. That line, protect the innocent, echoed through the room. It wasn't just words here. It was a creed. It was life or death. And tonight, he had lived it. Emily climbed onto his lap, small arms wrapping around his neck. "You saved me," she said, soft and unshakable. Liam hugged her back, feeling the weight of every ache in his body. Bear's gaze softened for the briefest moment. Then it hardened again. "We move fast. Any leads we can follow, we follow. No waiting for threats to come to us. We go to them first." Tank returned inside, dripping from the rain. "Perimeter checks done. No signs yet, but I've got eyes on all the usual trouble spots." Bear nodded and turned back to Liam. "I need you to remember this. You didn't just save Emily tonight. You made a choice. And choices like that, they don't get forgotten here." Liam looked down at Emily, then at the bikers around him. Their gazes weren't threatening. They were solid, unwavering. He nodded. "I stay," he whispered. Bear placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Good." Emily buried her face in Liam's chest. "Promise me we'll never let anyone hurt kids like that again." Liam squeezed her tighter. "I promise." Bear's voice carried across the room, cutting through the tension. "Remember what Liam did tonight. Remember why we fight. Innocent kids don't get second chances. And anyone who thinks otherwise, well, they'll learn the hard way." The room fell silent for a beat, all of them taking in the weight of their mission. The hum of the air conditioning and the gentle patter of rain outside were the only sounds. Then Bear spoke again, quieter, deliberate. "I want you all to think about it, about the kids out there who have no one to fight for them. Every child deserves protection. If you agree, comment below and let the world know. Protect the innocent. Make your voice count, because tonight showed exactly why it matters." Liam let out a long breath, feeling the tiniest sense of belonging seep into him. Emily rested against him, and for the first time in a long time, the fear in the world felt manageable. Outside, the rain fell harder, tapping the metal roof. But inside, the clubhouse was warm, alive, and ready. Tomorrow, Bear and the Angels would start tracking the people behind the truck. But tonight, Liam and Emily had survived. Tonight, they had a chance. And that was enough for now. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a pale glow across the clubhouse and the surrounding grounds. Liam had barely slept. His body ached in ways he didn't know were possible. The bruises along his ribs, the scratches on his arms, the throb in his head, but none of it compared to the gnawing fear that lingered in his chest. Emily had been calm through the night, but he could see the shadow of terror still clinging to her bright eyes. Inside the clubhouse, Bear moved with the quiet authority that made every Hell's Angel respect him without question. He had gathered the other bikers in the main room, their motorcycles parked outside, forming a protective barrier that no one in their right mind would challenge. Sparks, Reaper, Tank, and Doc all leaned in, ears attuned to every word, muscles tensed like coiled springs. "This isn't just some random thug looking to make a name for himself," Bear said, voice low but firm. "Sawyer Kane isn't going to stop until he gets what he wants. And right now, that's our family." Liam swallowed hard. The term family felt strange on his tongue. His life had never contained such a word in a positive context. But as he glanced at Emily, huddled in a blanket with Blitz by her side, he realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the closest he'd ever get to it. Bear turned to Blitz. "Take Liam through the layout again. Make sure he knows the safe zones, the exits, everything. I don't want surprises tonight." Blitz nodded. "You got it, boss." He crouched beside Liam, guiding him through a mental map of the clubhouse's interior. The living quarters, the armory, the kitchen, the reinforced basement, they were all laid out in a series of commands and counter-moves, and Liam soaked it in like a sponge. "This is where you'll stay if someone tries to get in," Blitz said, pointing to a small room with a steel-reinforced door. "You stay here. No heroics. You understand?" Liam nodded, though he couldn't stop the tension knotting his stomach. He had already risked his life once for Emily. The thought of doing it again, of confronting Sawyer Kane directly, made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Meanwhile, Bear walked to the front porch, where the morning mist clung to the ground, and the motorcycles gleamed in the faint light. He surveyed the surrounding area, every tree, every shadow, every glint of metal a potential threat. His hands rested casually on the handlebars of his bike, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, always 3 steps ahead. Emily peeked from behind Blitz, her small hand gripping the edge of the blanket. She had watched the Hells Angels all night, absorbed every whisper and movement. "Is he really coming?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "He will," Blitz said, his tone calm but firm. "But we'll be ready. Bear won't let anything happen to you." Liam's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe that, desperately. But he knew better than anyone that Kane was methodical, relentless, and cruel. Kane wouldn't stop for anything. He'd tested the Angels before. He'd seen the defenses, gauged the strength, and retreated, not because of mercy, but because he was calculating the perfect strike. The hours dragged on, filled with silent drills, whispered instructions, and constant vigilance. Liam moved through the spaces Blitz had shown him, memorizing doors, windows, and hiding spots. He practiced the breathing techniques Blitz taught him, slow inhales, controlled exhales, trying to steady the panic that threatened to rise every time a bird chirped too loudly or a branch scraped against the clubhouse wall. By mid-afternoon, the sun was higher, and the shadows shifted, painting the ground in long, uneven patterns. Sparks and Reaper stood guard near the perimeter, while Tank and Doc patrolled the motorcycles, checking every bolt, every chain, every fuel line. The Hells Angels worked with a synchronicity that made Liam's heart pound in awe and fear. Emily, sensing Liam's unease, squeezed his arm. "You're brave," she whispered. "I know it hurts, but you're brave." Liam blinked, fighting to hold back the tears. He wasn't used to being praised, especially not by someone he had sworn to protect. I'm just trying," he admitted, voice shaky. The evening brought a cooling breeze and the faint scent of wood smoke drifting from the fireplaces inside. Bear called everyone together again, standing in the center of the clubhouse like the anchor that held a storm at bay. "Tonight," he said, voice low and commanding, "we do not just defend. We prepare. Kane will come, and when he does, he'll realize that he picked the wrong family to mess with." Liam's stomach twisted. The words were meant to instill confidence, but all he could picture was the image of Kane on his motorcycle, face obscured by a helmet, eyes cold and calculating. The night deepened, and the first stars appeared, faint pinpricks against the black velvet sky. Lights were dimmed inside the clubhouse, and the bikers took positions with methodical precision. Every window was covered, every entry point guarded, and every shadow scrutinized. Liam stayed close to Emily, the small warmth of her hand and is giving him a strange sense of calm amidst the tension. Hours passed with only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the occasional caw of a distant crow, and the low hum of motorcycles idling outside. Then, just past midnight, a faint rumble reached their ears, a motorcycle engine, low and deliberate, approaching from the main road. Bear's head snapped toward the sound. He exchanged a glance with Blitz, and the two nodded almost imperceptibly. "Positions," Bear muttered, voice tight. "And stay sharp." Liam's heart slammed against his ribs as he realized the moment he had feared was approaching. Kane, coming to test them. And this time, there would be no chance to retreat. Emily hid behind Liam instinctively, clinging to him. He felt her warmth, her fear, her trust, and the weight of responsibility threatened to crush him. Blitz placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, steadying him. "You've got this. Stay focused. Watch, learn, and survive. You're stronger than you think." The motorcycle rumble grew louder, accompanied by the faint clatter of chains. Sparks and Reaper tightened their grips on their weapons. Tank crouched near the motorcycles, ready to respond at a moment's notice. Doc monitored the perimeter, every muscle coiled, eyes scanning every shadow. Bear's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Remember, Liam, This is about protection, not heroics. Protect Emily. Protect our family. Do not let Kane see fear in your eyes. Liam nodded, swallowing hard. His fingers trembled slightly, but he squared his shoulders, steeling himself for what was to come. Tonight would not be easy. Kane was a predator, and they were the prey, but they were also a family united, prepared to defend what was theirs with every ounce of strength they had. The motorcycle lights flickered through the trees. Kane's silhouette appeared, moving like a shadow across the edge of the clearing. Liam's pulse quickened. This was the moment where everything would be tested: courage, loyalty, and the fragile bonds that had been forged in fire, fear, and sacrifice. And as Kane's engine roared closer, Bear raised a hand, signaling readiness. Sparks and Reaper moved in perfect sync, and Tank's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Liam took a deep breath, Emily clutching his arm, and understood there was no turning back. Tonight, the Hells Angels would either protect their own or the darkness outside would claim what they held most dear. The night was thick and heavy, cloaking the clubhouse in shadows that seemed to breathe with anticipation. Liam's muscles were taut, every nerve alert, as he clutched Emily's hand, guiding her toward the reinforced living quarters. The distant rumble of Sawyer Kane's motorcycle was still faint, but its presence was unmistakable, a harbinger of the storm that was about to descend. Inside the clubhouse, the Hells Angels moved with a seamless efficiency born of years of discipline and instinct. Bear was a presence that demanded attention without raising his voice, his eyes scanning every corner, every dark silhouette beyond the perimeter. Sparks and Reaper crouched at the windows, fingers brushing against the cold metal of their weapons, eyes sharp and unwavering. Tank and Doc patrolled the interior, ensuring that every lock, every barrier, and every escape route was secure. Blitz stayed close to Liam, offering quiet guidance. Remember what we practiced. Keep your breathing steady. Emily's counting on you. So are we all. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge of urgency beneath it. Liam nodded, trying to focus, trying to believe in the words, though his body betrayed him with every shiver and tremor. Outside, the first real signs of movement appeared. A shadow shifted near the tree lean, and the unmistakable hum of Kane's motorcycle grew louder, closer, deliberate. Sparks signaled a hand motion, and Reaper mirrored it instantly. Both knew the drill. Any sudden movement from the intruder would be met with calculated, immediate force. Inside, Emily crouched against the wall, her small frame shivering not just from the cool night air, but from fear. Liam wrapped an arm around her protectively. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, more to convince himself than her. She nodded, trusting him in a way that cut deeper than any blade could. This child's faith was a weight he would carry through whatever came next. Bear moved toward the front entrance, every step deliberate. He was aware of the stakes. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a declaration. Kane wasn't after property, money, or a petty score. He was after a message, one that could unravel everything Bear and his club had fought to protect. The motorcycle's engine growled, a deep, threatening note that vibrated through the air and into the walls of the clubhouse. Kane's silhouette finally emerged from the darkness, illuminated momentarily by the glint of his helmet and the chrome of his bike. He slowed at the edge of the clearing, his eyes scanning the fortified perimeter with calculated patience. This was no impulsive attack. Every movement, every hesitation, was part of his strategy. Tank moved to the side, fingers tight on his rifle. Sparks and Reaper remained at the windows, ready for the signal. Doc stood by the garage exit, ensuring that no sudden maneuver could catch them off guard. Bear's hand rested lightly on the grip of his weapon, his stance calm, deliberate, a predator among predators. Liam's heart pounded. He had trained for this in theory, but now that it was happening, theory gave way to raw, instinctual fear. He scanned the room, noting every piece of cover, every path he could take if Kane, tried to breach the interior. Emily's small hand tightened around his, grounding him in the reality of what was at stake. Cain revved the engine, a low, menacing growl that carried across the clearing. He was testing them, pushing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. Sparks signaled again to Reaper, and both adjusted their aim subtly, ready to respond with lethal precision if necessary. The tension was electric, a current that could snap at any second. Bear's voice broke the silence, low and commanding. Stay sharp. Watch every move. Remember, this is about defense first. We survive. We protect what's ours. His eyes flicked to Liam, and there was a flash of something unspoken, respect, acknowledgement, and a silent understanding that the boy had already shown more courage than many seasoned bikers ever would. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Cain inched forward slightly, testing the perimeter, his posture calm but deliberate. He wasn't here for a skirmish. He was here to gauge, to plan, and to strike when the timing was perfect. Every Hell's Angel in the clearing was aware of this, muscles coiled, senses heightened, every instinct screaming that the night would erupt into chaos at the slightest provocation. Liam felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple, despite the chill in the air. Emily's small form pressed against him, her breath quick and shallow. He whispered again, "It's going to be fine. Just stay close to me." She nodded, eyes wide but trusting, her faith bolstering his own resolve. Bear raised a hand slowly, signaling a halt. Cain's motorcycle had paused, engine idling, wheels barely moving. The tension in the clearing was palpable, every shadow a potential threat, every movement a possible trigger. Then, without warning, Cain kicked the bike into gear, a roar splitting the silence. Sparks and Reaper reacted instantly, weapons raised, targeting precisely. Tank moved toward the side exit, Doc toward the garage. Inside, Liam and Emily crouched, the world reduced to heartbeats and breath, the sound of the motorcycle dominating their senses. The first flare of movement erupted at the perimeter. Cain's associate tried to dart through the tree line, miscalculating the angle. Sparks' weapon cracked, a precise shot that sent the intruder sprawling without causing mortal harm. A warning, a statement. Reaper's presence reinforced the message. They were ready, and they would not falter. Bear's eyes never left Cain. The tension was a game of wills now. Cain was a predator, but Bear was the anchor, the force that held a storm at bay. Every second dragged, heavy with anticipation, as the bikers assessed, adapted, and responded with unspoken coordination. Finally, Cain backed off, recognizing the fortitude and preparedness of the Angels. He revved his engine one last time, a low growl that spoke of unfinished business and calculated retreat. Then, with a blur of chrome and black leather, he disappeared into the night, leaving the clearing quiet but charged, the threat deferred but far from over. Liam exhaled shakily, releasing Emily's hand. Her small fingers still clung to his arm, and he realized just how fragile her safety was, how much of their lives depended on Bear and the Hells Angels. He felt a swell of gratitude, of awe, and of responsibility that he hadn't known existed. Inside, Bear surveyed his team. Good work. Tonight wasn't a victory, but it was a message. Cain knows we're ready. He knows we protect our own. His eyes softened briefly as they landed on Liam and Emily. And tonight, these two proved something too. Courage isn't about size or strength, it's about heart. And both of you have plenty of it. Blitz guided Liam and Emily back to the warmth of the living quarters, the adrenaline slowly giving way to exhaustion. Emily rested her head against Liam's shoulder, trusting him in a way that made his chest tighten with both pride and fear. The night passed slowly after that. Every creak, every rustle of leaves was a potential threat. But the Hells Angels maintained their watch with unwavering discipline. Cain had retreated, but the lesson was clear. The Angels were united, prepared, and ready to strike back if needed. As the first hints of dawn painted the sky in muted shades of gray, Liam sat beside Emily, the weight of the night pressing down on him. He had survived the first real test, but he knew that Kane would return, smarter and more dangerous than before. And when he did, the Hell's Angels, and the boy who had risked everything, would be ready. Emily stayed close to Liam long after Kane vanished into the trees. The clubhouse lights glowed warm behind them, engines idling low as the Angels stayed alert. Bear moved between riders outside, giving quiet instructions, tightening the perimeter, reinforcing the sense that no one was relaxing tonight. Not after the way Kane watched Emily through the dark like she was already stolen. Inside, Emily tried to stay brave, but Liam felt the slight tremble in her fingers. He squeezed her hand gently. "Hey, you're safe here. You know that." She nodded, though her eyes kept drifting to the door as if expecting Kane to materialize again. Bear came over, pulling off his gloves. "You two should get some rest. I've got the boys rotating shifts. Nobody's getting in or out without us knowing." Liam guided Emily to the hallway. Her small boots tapped softly on the wooden floor, echoing behind them. "Can you stay a minute?" she asked as they reached her room. "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." She leaned against the doorway, not ready to go in. "Why does he want me, Liam?" He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He couldn't tell her the truth. Kane wanted leverage. Kane wanted power. Kane wanted to break Bear in ways bullets never could. But Emily didn't need any of that weight. "He's just a bad man who's about to learn he messed with the wrong family," Liam said softly. "Your dad won't let anything happen to you. Neither will I." The tension in her shoulders eased just enough for her to breathe again. She stepped inside, hugging herself. "Good night." "Good night, Em." He waited until he heard her latch the door and her light footsteps crossing to the bed. Only then did he turn away. Bear caught Liam halfway down the hall. "Is she okay?" "Tired. Scared. But she trusts us." Bear nodded slowly, eyes carrying both pride and worry. "Stay sharp tonight. Kane doesn't retreat unless he has a next play." Liam didn't realize how right Bear was until everything later went wrong. The night stretched deep and silent. After 2 a.m., storm clouds rolled in, muting the moon and blurring shadows along the treeling. The Angels remained outside on rotating guard, 3 at the front yard, 2 patrolling the back, Whiskey and Torch taking turns on the roof. Inside, Liam sat in the lounge, boots on the floor, elbows on his knees, mind wandering even though he tried to stay alert. The adrenaline from the standoff had drained into a heavy, restless exhaustion. Just before 3 a.m., Whiskey stepped inside for his shift break, trading off with Torch. "All quiet so far." "Too quiet," Liam murmured. Whiskey chuckled dryly. Spoken like a real patched member. Liam didn't smile back. Something in his chest felt wrong. A pressure. A pull. Like he should be somewhere else. Like he needed to check on Emily. Whiskey noticed. "Go on," he said. "Make sure she's good." Liam didn't need to be told twice. He walked straight down the hallway. The lights were dim, casting long shadows across the wood grain. Something in the air felt off. Too still. Too hollow. When he reached Emily's door, he paused. Her nightlight usually glowed faintly under the crack at the floor. Tonight, dark. Liam knocked softly. "Emily?" "It's me." No answer. His heart thudded. He knocked again, harder. "Em? You awake?" Still nothing. He grabbed the handle. It turned. Unlocked. Emily never slept with the door unlocked. Something cold spilled through his chest. He pushed the door open slowly. The room was empty. The window was cracked open, curtains fluttering in the breeze. And on the floor, her stuffed turtle lay on its side, as if it had been dropped mid-struggle. Liam's throat closed. No. No, no, no. He bolted down the hallway. "Bear!" The president burst from his office, gun in hand. "What happened?" "She's gone." For a second, Bear's face froze, blank, stunned, disbelieving. Then everything inside him detonated. "Where?" "She's not in her room." Windows open. Liam grabbed him by the arm, pulling him forward. They took her. Bear didn't even feel his legs move. He was already sprinting. The angels erupted into chaos, boots thundering, radios crackling, weapons drawn. They tore through the clubhouse, out into the yard, scanning the darkness. Torch yelled from the roof. Movement in the trees. Northeast side. Vehicle small, fast. Engines roared awake. Liam jumped onto his bike before it even finished turning over. Bear mounted his, face carved from stone, eyes blazing. Then the headlights from the woods flashed. A black SUV shot out of the tree line, fishtailing across the grass. A man leaned out the window, pointing a gun at them. "Take cover," Whiskey shouted. A burst of gunfire lit the night. Emily's terrified scream carried across the wind like a knife to the ribs. Bear didn't hesitate. He accelerated straight into the bullets as if they were nothing but rain. Liam pushed alongside him, teeth clenched, vision blurring with fury. "Hold on, Emily," he whispered. "I'm coming." The SUV hit the dirt road, tires skidding, engine coughing under the strain of weight and speed. The angels thundered after it, a line of roaring engines shaking the earth. Storm clouds cracked open overhead. Rain hammered the road. Mud flew. Lightning flashed. Emily's muffled cry echoed again from the moving vehicle. Liam's heart shattered and hardened into something merciless. No matter the cost, they were getting her back. If you're watching this, drop a comment saying, "Protect every child," because no kid should ever face monsters like these. The storm swallowed the rest of the words as the bikes tore down the highway, into the darkness, toward the motel that would become hell for the men who dared touch Emily. Rain hammered the pavement so hard it looked like the world was dissolving into static. Lightning cracked above the highway, illuminating the black SUV fishtailing ahead of the Hells Angels as they tore through the storm. The roar of engines blended with thunder, the kind of sound that made the earth itself tremble. Bear rode at the front, soaked to the bone, face locked in a rage so deep it looked carved into something prehistoric. Liam was only a bike length behind him, hands white-knuckled on the grips. Every muscle in his body was coiled tight, the storm water burning his eyes as he tried to keep Emily's scream alive in his mind, because fear alone wasn't enough to keep him focused. He needed fury. He needed purpose. He needed to bring her home. Torch, Whiskey, Reaper, and Blitz rode in formation around them, engines snarling despite the downpour. The road ahead twisted into a stretch of old industrial outskirts, rotted warehouses, flickering streetlights, and an aging motel that hadn't seen a paying guest in years. "That's where they're heading," Torch shouted over the radio. "They know they can't outrun us on the highway." The SUV skidded violently as it took the exit ramp too fast, nearly spinning, but the driver corrected and barreled toward the motel. One of the rusted neon letters flickered, casting a sick glow across the puddles. Bear's voice came through the calm, low and lethal. "Brothers, we end it here." The SUV screeched around the corner of the building, and then disappeared behind it. The angels slowed just enough to avoid plowing into the same turn. Rain splashed upward as their tires cut through the water. Bear signaled with 2 fingers, split formation. Whiskey, Torch, and Reaper took the left flank, sweeping around the back of the building. Blitz, Liam, and Bear went right. The motel loomed like a skeleton in the dark. Broken windows. Mold is climbing the walls. A payphone rusted into the concrete. A sign that once promised heated pool now hung sideways, creaking in the wind. As Bear's group approached the corner, Blitz slowed, pointing. "Tire tracks. Fresh." Liam's stomach twisted. The SUV was parked behind the motel, engine smoking, one door open, and there was blood on the ground. Not enough to be Emily's, thank God. More like someone scraped their arm or hit something sharp during the stop. But she was nowhere in sight. Rain poured over Liam's face, mixing with his breath as it hitched in his throat. "Emily," he whispered. "Where are you?" Bear moved ahead, scanning the ground like a hunter tracking wounded prey. He touched the blood briefly, then stood again, jaw tight. They dragged someone. Small steps. Kid-sized. Liam's throat closed. Blitz clenched the handle of his pistol. Then she's alive. Bear looked toward the stairs leading to the second floor. Up there. Lightning flashed. In that split-second glare, Liam saw movement. A figure ducking behind a railing, dragging something small. Bear shouted, "Move!" They sprinted. Footsteps thundered up the metal stairs. Rain made every step slick. Liam nearly slipped twice but caught himself, pushing harder. His heart hammered in his ears louder than any storm. At the top of the landing, a door slammed shut. Whiskey's voice crackled through the radio. "Left side cleared. No one back here." Reaper added, "We saw shadow movement upstairs. 2 men, 1 small shape." Bear growled. "Then meet us at the top." The angels converged toward the locked door. Liam's breath came in gasps. He pressed his ear to it. Inside, muffled sobbing. Emily. His whole soul nearly broke at the sound. Bear kicked the door, once, twice, but the old steel frame held. They barricaded it. Blitz muttered. "Heavy." Reaper and Torch arrived from the far side, dripping rainwater. Bear looked at them, eyes flaring with command. "Breach on my count." Weapons raised. Boots planted. Bodies aligned. A soft voice inside whimpered, "Daddy." Bear's fingers trembled around the grip of his shotgun. "1," he whispered. Liam stepped back, heart hammering so hard it hurt. 2. Rain pounded the metal walkway. Wind whipped the broken motel sign. 3. Bear fired. The shotgun blast blew the lock clean off its hinges. Splinters exploded outward. The door swung open with a groaning crack. The angels flooded in. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering lamp. 2 men stood in the center, one holding Emily with a knife pressed to her throat, the other raising a gun toward the intruders. Everything happened in one breath. The gunman fired. Torch dove sideways, slamming into the other angels. The bullet tore through the doorway, hitting the wall. Bear fired again, hitting the man in the shoulder and sending him crashing into the dresser with a scream. The knife wielder jerked Emily backward, dragging her toward the bathroom, blade trembling dangerously close to her skin. She cried out, "Liam!" Liam didn't hesitate. He lunged. It didn't matter that he was unarmed. It didn't matter that the man was stronger. It didn't matter that he might die. The only thing that mattered was the small, terrified girl reaching out for him. He hit the kidnapper like a human spear. The man lost his grip on Emily and slammed backward into the wall, knife flying from his hand and clattering across the floor. Emily fell, scrambling toward Bear, who scooped her up instantly and shielded her with his entire body. Liam and the kidnapper struggled violently in the narrow space. The man clawed at Liam's face, smashing his fist into Liam's ribs. Pain exploded through him, but he held on, twisting, using every ounce of desperation he had left. The man tried to reach for the fallen knife, but Blitz kicked it across the room before he could touch it. Whiskey grabbed the kidnapper by the collar, yanking him off Liam and slamming him face first into the mattress before cuffing his hands behind his back with zip ties. The room just stopped. Silence after chaos. Rain still pounded the roof. The busted neon sign buzzed outside. Emily sobbed into Bear's chest, gripping his leather with tiny fists. Bear held her so tightly, Liam feared she would vanish if he loosened his grip even slightly. "It's okay," Bear whispered into her hair, voice cracking. "I've got you. I've got you, baby girl." Liam pressed a shaking hand to his ribs, breathing through the pain. His arms trembled. His face stung from scratches. But he didn't care. Emily was safe. She was alive. She turned her head just enough to look at him, face blotchy and wet. "Liam, you came." "Always," he whispered. Blitz clapped a heavy hand on Liam's shoulder. "Kid, you just saved her life." Again, Bear slowly stood, holding Emily close, and looked at Liam. For the first time, the expression on the president's face wasn't rage or command or fear. It was gratitude. Raw, unfiltered, bone deep. "Let's get her home," he said. And together, Soaked in rain, bruised, and shaking, the angels led Emily out of the motel and into the storm. Rain still hammered the pavement as the angels pulled away from the ruined motel, but something in the storm had shifted. The thunder was drifting farther off, rolling toward the edge of town. Dawn was trying to push through the clouds, weak, bruised light leaking across the sky like a slow exhale after a night spent drowning. Bear rode with one hand steady on Emily, who sat curled against him, wrapped in Torch's dry jacket. Liam followed close, ribs throbbing, knuckles split open, eyelids heavy. But he stayed upright, refusing to wobble, refusing to fall. Emily kept glancing back at him, as if making sure he was still there. He always would be. When they reached the clubhouse, the moment the doors opened, the angels inside erupted. Rage, relief, shock, all tangled into one violent chorus of emotion. Is she okay? What happened? Who took her? Liam. Holy hell, kid. Bear didn't speak. Didn't need to. He walked straight through them with Emily held tight, her small face pressed against his chest. Sparks swept a hand over his head. Mother of God. Kane finally crossed the line. Doc ran up with towels and a blanket. Emily reached for Liam the second she was handed off. Her fingers trembled as they caught his sleeve. Liam, don't go. I'm not going anywhere, he said softly. Doc blinked at the bruises blooming on Liam's side. Kid, you need to sit. But Bear spoke first. No. He stays with her. The room paused. Bear wasn't a man who handed out privileges lightly. If he said Liam stayed, then Liam stayed. Doc swallowed the shock and simply nodded. All right. Liam sat beside Emily on the couch, and she curled her fingers around his. Her breathing was shaky, with little hiccups breaking through every few seconds. She wasn't crying anymore, not fully, but grief clung to her like the damp from the rain. The clubhouse was a storm of angry voices behind them. Reaper slammed his fist onto the table. A kidnapping? A damn kidnapping? Kane just declared war. Torch paced, boots leaving muddy tracks. We should have gone after him right after the first hit. Should have ended this last week. Whiskey growled. And get half the club killed walking into a trap. No. He wanted us angry. Angrier than this. Blitz leaned forward, voice low but lethal. He miscalculated. Taking Emily. That was a mistake he won't walk away from. Emily flinched at the sound of Kane's name. Liam squeezed her hand. Her breathing eased, just a little. Bear finally turned, his voice cutting through the uproar like a blade. He didn't take her. Silence. Torch frowned. Boss, we found her at the motel. He didn't do it himself, Bear growled. Kane doesn't get his hands dirty until he's sure he's already won. He pointed toward the door. This wasn't his endgame. This was bait. Whiskey stiffened. Bait for who? Bear's eyes swept the room with a fury that chilled the air. Us. All of us. He wanted me to leave the compound. Torch cursed under his breath. A diversion. Exactly, Bear said. And if he was willing to risk losing Emily just to draw us out, then he's planning something bigger. The room went quiet. Too quiet. Emily pressed her face into Liam's arm, whispering. He said Daddy wouldn't make it in time. Liam swallowed hard. Blitz crouched beside her. Sweetheart, you remember what the other man looked like? The one holding you. Emily nodded, voice tiny. He had a wolf tattoo. On his neck. Every angel froze. Whiskey's face went pale. No way. That's Brody Chase. Kane's number 2. The one who never misses. Torch spat a curse. If Chase is involved, this isn't about kidnapping. It's about annihilation. Bear looked at Emily with such tenderness that it almost didn't fit his rough, brutal frame. Thank you, baby girl. That helps us. Emily nodded, then leaned into Liam again, because no matter how many angels filled that room, she always looked to him first. Liam looked at her, then at Bear. We need to finish this, he said quietly, before he comes back. Bear studied him for a long, heavy moment. Rainwater dripped from the ends of his beard. His jaw flexed. You're right, Bear said. The table erupted again. Plans, threats, maps, predictions. The storm outside paled compared to the one inside the clubhouse. But in the middle of it all, one moment landed heavier than the rest. Sparks slammed down a folder of evidence. Photos of other kids Kane's crew had dragged into their messes over the years. Kids used as leverage, bargaining chips, shields, pawns. Not all of them made it home. Emily blinked at the photos. Liam's fists clenched. Blitz muttered something that tasted like venom. He's been preying on the helpless for years. I want his head. If you believe children should never be used as leverage in any fight, comment below. Kids are off limits. Because tonight had shown exactly how evil Kane's tactics really were. Bear closed the folder with a snap, eyes burning like wildfire. He thinks we're weakened now. He thinks fear will slow us down. He thinks taking Emily will break me. He lifted his chin, voice lowering. He forgot who we are. Reaper leaned forward. So what's the move, boss? Bear stepped closer to the table, fists planted on the wood. Kane's not hiding. Men like him don't hide, he said. They wait. And if Chase is involved, they're already preparing for the next step. Torch nodded grimly. Yeah, an ambush. Bear met the eyes of every man in the room. That's why we're going to strike first. The air shifted. The temperature changed. Every angel went still. Liam felt Emily squeeze his hand. We hit him before he hits us, Bear continued. We go to the camp he thinks we don't know about. Whiskey frowned. But we don't know where it is. Bear's lips curled into a dangerous smirk. Oh, we do now. He tossed a burner phone onto the table. It skidded across the wood, spinning. Blitz picked it up. Where'd this come from? From one of the men holding Emily, Bear said. Liam knocked him into the wall hard enough that the phone fell out of his pocket. The room turned to Liam. Blitz whistled. Kid, you might have just saved us twice in one night. Bear continued. The phone received a message during the ride back. He tapped the screen. Coordinates. Sent by Chase. Torch blinked. He thinks the kidnappers are still alive. Exactly. Reaper grinned, cold and sharp. So we know where to find him. Bear straightened, shoulders squared, storm brewing behind his eyes. Gear up, brothers. He looked at Liam. You too. Liam swallowed. Me? Bear nodded once. He took her because of you. She trusts you. And you saved her life, again. You earned the right to see this through. Emily gripped Liam's sleeve, wide-eyed. Don't go. Liam knelt in front of her, gently brushing her damp hair behind her ear. I'll come back. I promise. She searched his face, serious, scared, trusting. Pinky promise? She whispered. He hooked his pinky around hers. Pinky promise. Bear's voice thundered behind him. Everyone on your bikes. The clubhouse erupted into motion, boots slamming, gears snapping into place, engines warming up in the rain-soaked yard. Thunder rolled again, as if the sky understood what was coming. Liam stood, ribs aching, heart pounding. Tonight, Kane had taken his shot. Tomorrow, the angels would take theirs. And only one side would walk away. The night felt too quiet in those 3 seconds after Kane's grenade clattered across the broken warehouse floor. Liam didn't think. His body moved long before his mind caught up. He dove toward the small metal sphere, grabbed the pinless casing, and wrenched the loose firing wire away from the ignition cap. It snapped with a sharp pop, just as the grenade clicked toward detonation. Silence. Then Liam exhaled, the breath shaking out of him in a single sharp gust. His hands trembled, dust and sweat mixing on his palms, but the grenade was dead, disarmed by a heartbeat. Across the warehouse, Kane stared at him, disbelief widening his bloodshot eyes. You, he snarled. You just don't die, do you? Liam rose slowly, chest heaving. Bear, still bleeding from the shoulder but very much alive, stepped up beside him. The other angels fanned out behind them, forming a wall of leather and resolve. Emily, still wrapped in the borrowed biker jacket, stayed close to Wrench and Doc, eyes locked on Liam like he was the only steady point in a collapsing world. Kane spat blood onto the floor, his voice rough. Hand the girl over. You know this ain't over. You can't protect her forever. Bear's voice was deep, steady, and cold enough to frost steel. We just did. The weight of the moment settled. Kane's men had been beaten, the gunfire long since faded. Only Kane remained, cornered and furious, knowing the power he once commanded had dissolved around him. But cornered men didn't surrender. They reached for whatever violence still lay within arm's length. Kane lunged, not with a weapon, but with the kind of raw, reckless rage of a man who'd already lost everything and didn't care what else he lost. Liam saw him coming, the broken glint in his eyes, the crooked twist of madness in his smile, and he stepped between Kane and the angels without hesitation. Kane swung hard. Liam blocked the first punch with his forearm, twisting Kane's wrist aside. The second hit came wild, sloppy, and Liam ducked beneath it. Then he struck once, clean, precise, the punch landing right across Kane's jaw with a crack that echoed through the hollow warehouse. Kane staggered, but didn't go down. He swung again. Liam caught his elbow, pivoted, and drove his shoulder forward, sending Kane crashing to the concrete. But Kane didn't stay down. He scrambled to his knees, pulled a pocket knife from his boot, and lunged. Emily gasped. Bear reached for his gun, but froze. Liam and Kane were too close. The knife slashed toward Liam's ribs. Liam caught Kane's wrist with both hands, fighting to twist it away. The blade screeched as it grazed across Liam's belt buckle. Kane snarled in his face, spittle and fury mixing into words that barely made sense. You took everything from me, everything. Liam gritted his teeth, muscles trembling with the effort of holding Kane back. You took it from yourself. With a final surge, Liam twisted Kane's arm behind him, forcing the knife free. It clattered beside the dead Grenade. Kane collapsed forward, breathing hard, his rage draining out of him like water leaking from a cracked jug. For the first time, he looked small, not the towering threat he'd been, but a man who had spent so many years hurting others that he no longer remembered where the hurt originally began. He looked up at Liam, eyes red and empty. Finish it, he hissed. Go on. Be like me. Liam stared. He thought about Emily, terrified, trembling, but still brave. He thought about Bear, the man who had once led with only strength, but now led with something sharper and more powerful, compassion. He thought about the angels who had stood shoulder to shoulder, risking everything not for pride, but for a girl who had no one else. He looked at Kane and shook his head. No, Liam said quietly. That's why you lost. Bear stepped forward, pain in his shoulder, but authority in every movement. Kane Ross, he said, voice carrying through the empty building. You're done. You'll answer for every bruise you left, every fear you caused, every innocent you hunted. Wrench and Doc handcuffed Kane with the zip ties they carried on long rides for safety stops. Kane didn't fight. His head hung low, breath coming in broken wheezes. Whatever fire had driven him was gone now, smothered by the weight of his own choices. Emily stepped forward slowly, voice barely above a whisper. It's over, right? Liam turned to her with a soft nod. It's over. She threw herself against him, gripping him with trembling arms. Liam held her close, steadying her heartbeat with the calm rise and fall of his own. Bear watched them, his expression shifting, something like gratitude, something like respect, something like the understanding that family wasn't built by blood, but by the choices made in moments exactly like this. Sirens grew in the distance. Sheriff Harlan had been called as soon as the chase began. The angels stepped outside, forming a protective semicircle around Emily as the sheriff's cruisers rolled up the cracked road toward the warehouse. Sheriff Harlan looked at Bear, then at the captured Kane, then at Liam holding Emily like she was made of glass and fire. Looks like you boys handled things before we got here. Bear smirked. Didn't plan on it. But we finish what we start. Kane was loaded into the cruiser, defeated, his empire shattered in a single night. Emily walked beside Liam toward the bikes. Her voice was small, still shaky. Can I still ride back with you? Liam glanced at Bear, who gave a nod. Yeah, Liam said softly. You're safe now. As they mounted up, the angels revved their engines, a thunderous send-off echoing through the dawn-like hour before sunrise. The sky was still dark, but something in the air felt lighter. The danger had passed. The night had survived. Over the sound of the engines. And if you want to ride with us into the next chapter of this journey, make sure you subscribe, because this story isn't done yet, not by a long shot. With that, the angels rolled out, engines roaring. Emily pressed safely between Liam's steady arms, the first hints of dawn touching the horizon as the club carried their family home. The sun rose slow over the hills like it knew the club needed a gentler morning. After the chaos, after the chase, after the blood and the smoke, the world finally seemed to exhale. The Iron Cross compound wasn't quiet. Bikers were never quiet. But the energy was softer, easier, weighted with relief instead of fear. Liam felt it the moment he stepped outside. Riley, no, Emily, stood beside him on the porch, still in the oversized hoodie Tank had wrapped around her the night before. Her face was puffy from crying, but her eyes were clear now, steady in a way that made Liam forget she was only 9. Inside, the brothers were cleaning up the mess from the night, patching bullet holes, sweeping broken glass, stacking crates, checking weapons. Nothing dramatic, nothing chaotic. Just the simple work of men who'd survived something together. Emily yawned, leaned into Liam's arm, and said quietly, "Do you think they're mad I ran outside?" Liam shook his head. "They're not mad. They were scared. That's different." She blinked up at him, absorbing that, then nodded. "Are you scared still?" "Yeah," he admitted, "but not like before." Emily didn't move for a moment, then wrapped her small arms around his waist. Normally, he'd stiffen, unsure of how to accept affection. But this time he let his arms fold around her, letting the warmth settle in a place inside him that had stayed empty for too long. Footsteps approached behind them. "You two holding up?" It was Bear. His gray-streaked beard still held bits of soot, and one side of his jacket had a slash from a knife fight that would need stitching. But his eyes, those big, heavy, father-forged eyes, were softer than Liam had ever seen. Bear looked at Emily first, brushing his thumb across her cheek like he needed to confirm she was still standing, still real. Then his gaze moved to Liam. "You did well," Bear said, voice gravel and warmth. Liam swallowed. "You saved her." Bear shook his head. "Kid, we all did. You included." Liam felt the words like a weight on his chest. Not heavy, exactly. More unfamiliar. He didn't know what to do with praise. He didn't know how to keep from wondering if people were lying. But Bear didn't lie. Men like him didn't need to. Blitz came out next, holding 2 mugs of something steaming. He handed one to Liam. "Careful," Blitz said. "It's hot. You drink it slow, you'll be fine. You drink it fast, and your insides will melt into your shoes. Up to you." Liam actually laughed, a short startled sound. Blitz grinned like he'd been waiting weeks to hear it. Emily took one sip of her own drink and gagged. "It tastes like old boots." "That means it's working," Blitz said proudly. Bear rolled his eyes, nudged Blitz away, then crouched to face the 2 kids. "Today," he said softly, "we breathe. Tonight, we ride." Emily's face brightened instantly. She loved rides. Not the speed, not the danger, but the noise in the wind and the feeling of being tucked safely between her father's arms. Liam blinked. "Ride? Like me too." "Of course," Bear said. "Unless you're planning on running off again." Liam didn't speak. The silence stretched a little too long. The truth was hard to say out loud. He had nowhere to run to. Not anymore. Doc stepped out of the main doors right then, saving Liam from answering. The medic waved a bandage roll in the air. "Liam, your ribs aren't going to wrap themselves." Liam made a face. "They could try." "Get over here," Doc ordered. "And don't make me chase you. I ain't as young as I used to be." Emily giggled and pushed Liam toward him. "Go. He gets mean when people disobey." "No, I don't," Doc muttered. "I get even." Doc's hands were efficient, practiced, and gentle. Liam sat on the metal stool while the older man cleaned the scratches on his side and layered fresh bandages over the bruised ribs. "You heal fast," Doc said. "Good sign." "Been hurt before," Liam murmured. Doc paused, not in pity, but in understanding. "Well, you're not alone anymore. Makes healing easier." Liam didn't know what to say to that. When Doc finished, he squeezed Liam's shoulder. "You did right by the girl. Not everyone would have thrown themselves in front of a truck." Liam shook his head. "I didn't think. I just moved." "That's the difference between a coward and a man," Doc said. "Instinct." By late afternoon, the compound came alive with the rumble of engines. Rows of polished Harleys caught the amber light like teeth in the jaws of steel beasts. The brothers cleaned up, patched their cuts, and changed into fresh leathers. Tonight wasn't a mission. Tonight wasn't a hunt. Tonight was a ritual, a celebration of survival. Emily zipped up her little riding jacket and hugged nearly every biker she passed, like she couldn't help it. Some ruffled her hair, some lifted her, some just knelt and let her arms wrap around their necks because being hugged by a child who loved them was something a man didn't refuse. Liam stood uncertainly by Bear's bike. Bear approached him quietly. "You ready?" Liam nodded, then hesitated. "Bear, do you really want me on your ride?" Bear studied him for a slow, heavy beat. "Liam, you saved my daughter's life. Twice now. You damn near died doing it. You stood your ground when grown men were running." Liam stared down at the gravel. "I don't know how to be around people like you. Like families." Bear placed one large hand on the back of Liam's neck and squeezed, not painfully, but firmly, grounding him. "You'll learn," he said. "We'll teach you. All we ask is that you try." Liam's chest tightened. His throat burned. "Okay," he whispered. Bear let go, then swung onto his bike. Emily climbed up in front of him. Blitz motioned for Liam. "You ride with me," Blitz said. "Kid seat soft, don't worry. And if you fall asleep, I'll tie you to my jacket like a backpack." Liam almost smiled again. He climbed on. The engine roared under him. Blitz leaned back and yelled over the growl. "Welcome to the road, kid." The ride began slowly, just a formation rolling through the open country, dust rising behind them like a fading ghost. The air smelled like pine and gasoline, and the faint bite of autumn was coming in early. Liam kept his eyes on Bear's bike ahead, on Emily's hair flying in the wind, on Bear's steady arms keeping her safe. A warmth filled his chest, unfamiliar but not unwelcome. Blitz shouted back, "How's it feel?" Liam didn't answer with words. He closed his eyes, let the wind hit his face, felt the vibrations of the engine heartbeat deep in his bones. Felt, maybe for the first time in his entire life, free. The convoy wound up a ridge overlooking the town. At the top, the bikers killed their engines. Silence wrapped around them. Bear stepped off his bike, and Emily perched on the seat like a little queen. Liam stood beside Blitz, watching the father and daughter walk toward him. Bear didn't say anything at first. He simply placed his hand on Liam's shoulder. Just one, heavy, unshakable hand. "Your family now," Bear said. Liam didn't cry, but his vision blurred. His throat locked. His chest caved inward, then expanded like his body didn't know how to contain something this big. Emily hugged him from the side, whispering, "You're my brother now." And Liam, homeless, forgotten, broken Liam, finally believed it. The sun dipped behind them. The wind shifted. Engines began to rumble again, one by one. The Iron Cross MC rode into the night. Together. And this time, Liam rode with them.